Welcome back to the Charles Michael Hour. I'm Charles Michael, and today we're here with QUQUQUINNY, who is, she's a good friend of mine. This is actually the first episode that I've basically recorded since January, so it's, I'm out of practice a bit, but it's gonna be good. How are you doing, Quinn?
Oh yeah, I'm doing good. How are you, Charles?
I'm good. So, Blisscord. No,
Discord.
Rhino's actually directed me to Blisscord on an episode of the Charles Michael Hour of this very podcast. And immediately during it I was like, I'm not gonna join, but then I was like, yeah, I'll join, just because why not. And then the next episode, actually, we did the immediate previous one, number 7. You showed me all this music from Blissum and Vi and Annie and Hext. So those fellas were in that server, and it was a fun place to, and I hung around for a few months, but I think I left in March or April, and I don't think I need to stay there any longer. I left because really someone got mad at me, or triggered, really, because I just said how I felt about the campaign for psychiatric abolition, which is that I don't think their cause is that good, or I feel like they're a bit disingenuous, but really, I mean, because I feel like the left should be really pro science and pro mental health, and that should include psychiatry and therapy and psychology. That should incorporate that stuff. So but I won't go into that for really long, just because it should be water under the bridge now, but I wanted to kind of provide context, because as of the previous episode, I was still like, oh, Blisscord, wow, sounds cool, but but what do you think about all that CPA stuff?
I am honestly not super aware or educated about it at all to really have a solid opinion formed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just think, if you have some sort of, like, if you feel like if you feel like you're going through something, I really feel like you should see a professional about it, someone who's kind of a neutral guide, that is able to emotionally guide you with these problems, but isn't really so emotionally attached to you. Is like, and it's cool that your friends are kind of helping you, but you really shouldn't shun psychiatrists or therapists, or take them out of the equation entirely. As for asylums, I feel like, yes, there are really bad problems with the way insane asylums work, and it's good that the campaign for psychiatric abolition brings those to light. I don't think letting all the loonies out is a good way of solving those problems. I just think we should make a more comforting environment that doesn't smell like piss and sound like screaming, and isn't boring, and you're not really cut from contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
Like, it would be nicer if there was like a rec center where everyone lived communally in their white robes, instead of just in their straitjackets, instead of like, just this cell. But you know, and I actually don't know how Rhinos himself feels about the CPA, but you know, it's just, you know, I just feel like it's a disingenuous group, and but you know, contextually they're based out of England, so I suppose the healthcare system in Britain has a lot of work to do. Um,
That's definitely.
I haven't been to Britain in my life though. I'd love to go to England though, but yeah, I just really, you know, talk about mental health. You know, this is a good idea to bring up disabled world, right? Because I'm open about
Oh yeah,
talking
definitely.
about talking about the work in progress stuff, and both of us actually do some voice acting in it. You know,
Yeah, I think it's a really neat project that you've put together, and I'm excited to see it when it's all finished.
yeah. Um, it's it's my baby, you know, and you know I've been working on it for um actually 2 months. So, and it'll probably take many more, but you know, I work on it, and right now this is the only thing that I want to do, and it's about the only thing that I can do, or even have the energy or willpower to do, because you know what? Um, 2 days ago, um, this is for all you viewers or listeners who don't know this, but I've pretty much told everyone in my immediate circle who's kind of savvy to this. Um, 2 days ago, my external hard drive failed on me, and so I tried taking it to Best Buy. Actually, I have a really, really great friend here in my city of Abilene, Texas. Their name's Blue. So it was just, you know, coincidentally we were gonna have some sort of meetup that day, and so I said to them, "Well, can you take me to Best Buy, because you know I need to take my hard drive in and see if I can recover all the data." So they obliged, and they were gracious enough to take me to Best Buy. And the Geek Squad employee there, you know, said, "Well, if it doesn't work, then it probably means all your files are gone, and it costs, you know, at least $800 or $700 to send it to Kentucky, so they can piece every single fragment of a file back together, and that'll take at least 3 months." So
So fucked.
yeah, so I don't have $800 to shell out. So I was just like, you know, and mind you, back in October, I had this kind of issue, because I spilled soda on my other laptop. So I'm actually using a new laptop that I got in October, and I had them take all the files out of my old hard drive and put them on that external hard drive. So that external hard drive hasn't even lasted a full year. I don't know what the planned obsolescence gods are commanding these, you know, these external hard drive manufacturers to do. But, you know, all of my music, a lot of the documentary stuff, just a lot of what I was working on is, you know, it's lost media now. And that's why, you know, yesterday I put out a very, very quick compilation album called The Narcissistic Delusion Erodes, which compiles stuff that I could piece together from like Discord and Google Drive, and recordings that Allie and Jenny had sent me. And, you know, it's really just that, you know, that shouldn't have happened, but it did. And you know, I should be taking my external hard drive to more people, but as it stands, I don't have a lot of money. And you know, they just said, well, I said, But I'll finish the story with the Best Buy. So I said to the Geek Squad employee, well, can you take it in back and just hook it up to your computer like you did in October? And she was like, okay, I'll try it with the mule. So she tries it with the mule, and she comes back, and she's like, it's gone. So I felt like my heart stopped beating, and the world stopped spinning in the middle of the Best Buy. So, I just kind of like, what am I gonna do? And so Blue, then I asked them to take me to the Record Guys, and the Record Guys is actually, for you, Quinny, the Record Guys is a local store here in Abilene that sells records and cassettes, CDs, 8-track tapes, record players, radios.
I think I remember you sending me some like art stuff you've done for them before.
Yeah, exactly. So it's I like helping out there. I like hanging out there. It's a place where you can loiter in peace. And John has been like a mentor to me ever since I was 10. So I just sort of take my worries to the Record Guys whenever I feel like I can't, whenever I feel like I have a problem that's too big for me to process. The Record Guys is my go-to place, and John is like my go-to faux therapist in a way. Not that he's like qualified in any way, but he really knows like the right thing to say to me, and he really knows like how to think of this logically, how to make me feel better, and how to just console me, or how to, what do we do from here? That's why he's the boss. Yeah. And he owns the place, because he's a good leader. He can really think of the things analytically. Even I think, and I like to think that I think these things out analytically, but sometimes emotions cloud my judgment in a way that's kind of overwhelming. So I take these things to John, and so he was like, that sucks, I'm sorry, I've had that happen to me before. So, but it was nice to kind of commiserate there. I did buy a $40 Beatles record for $30 though. So
W.
Yeah. W. So, silver lining, I got to take Blue to the Record Guys for the first time because they'd never been.
That is a good silver lining.
Yeah.
You're at a shitty situation.
Yeah. Also, silver lining, if I go down, everyone that I know goes down with me. So I'm not alone.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully, as for Disabled World, Allie emailed me her lines for Lavender, Miss Rosemary, and Lily. You sent me Topaz's lines on Discord, and I was just able to very quickly re-record my lines for Orchid. Oh, and Jenny shared like a Google Drive recording back in May, which actually everyone recorded their lines in May except for me. I just had to do some quick re-recordings that day, or I think yesterday. Jenny sent me like the recording of the mom in the commercial. You listeners don't know what we're talking about, but when Disabled World comes out, you'll know. But it's really, Disabled World is a short film, which I wrote because I want to spit at these ableists who are winning, and I want to make an artistic statement, and I want to, this is the, it's going to be animated, and excuse me, and I really feel like, I don't know, but have you ever seen Do the Right Thing?
I have not.
Yeah, it's
Do tell.
It's a Spike Lee film that came out in 1989, and it's kind of it's kind of this, it's about like racial tensions in this neighborhood in Bedford Stuyvesant in New York. So I'm not gonna give you like a plot summary of the film or a synopsis because I'm really awful at that. But I feel like a lot of the themes that were in that movie also kind of play into this short film that I'm doing, Disabled World, especially the bleak, kind of gloomy outcome at the end.
Yeah.
Because the story isn't really resolved and nothing really, no problem, no overarching problem gets solved. It's just, you know, the viewer is faced with this series of problems that happen to people who are as real as the characters they see on screen, and, you know, then the viewer is posed with a big question mark at the end. So that's what I want to do. I don't want to pose any solution, probably because I don't really know the solution myself. Um, I'm sure that there's someone who's better qualified than me who can come up with a solution as to how to deal with these people who snub autistic people or annoy people with OCD or snub people with ADHD or just kind of slight abuse and ableism, really. Like, people resent us, our so-called caretakers resent us and that kind of thing. So, if they're around us long enough, they're just going to be like, I'm only here to get paid. I don't actually like you. But it's good to joke about it, and it's good to be facetious about it, and that's what this short film aims to do. It'll be very jokey, and it's a cartoon, it's got to be funny if it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
you know yeah. um what can you say about Disabled World? Because I know you have autism.
Yeah. Like I I am forgetting like a lot of the script off the top of my head, and that like
Oh
when
well,
I try to memorize things, like I need. Thank you. Like when I memorize things, like I need the thing in front of me to like fully remember stuff.
yeah.
Like, does that make sense?
Well, there it is. It's
Like I
just a
need to see
Google
the
Doc.
words and have memories of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I think like it's very good at just showing like a conversation between three neurodivergent people and how their neurodivergence can like affect each other and how their struggles like relating to like either each other with their neurodivergence, like while they all experience drastically different things because of their said neurodivergence, they all have a overarching shared experience of ableism, and that they're exploring that shared experience of ableism while having their disagreements about how they each perceive the world.
Yeah.
So, like, my overall takeaway from it is like neurodivergent people, while all of our struggles are different from one another, we all have like a shared sense of connection in the ableism that we face in a day to day.
Mhm. Yeah, I think and this is something that I personally believe, but I think, we should really, as neurodivergent people, we should be really like getting into, like, we should be getting politically active because
Definitely.
as far as my local city council is concerned, I can really only talk locally because really that's all that I'm keeping up with. I barely watch the news anymore. um,
Same. And honestly, not
And
watching
it's
like mainstream news has been great for my mental health as well, so I'm keeping it that way.
well, I mean, yeah, I don't watch a lot of CNN or Fox, or I prefer BBC, PBS NewsHour, and um, C-SPAN. C-SPAN does all the live streams of the um, White House briefings and House and Senate in Washington D.C. Um, so I have that app. I have the C-SPAN app, and I usually just watch PBS and BBC on YouTube. BBC because I think it's cool to hear people in England having this sort of outsider um, discussion about American politics, and PBS because they're the least biased.
Yeah.
Um, oh, speaking of PBS, another film that I watched that has really influenced disabled world is one that's called The Autism Enigma. It came out in 2011, so well before the DSM-5 was published, 2 years actually. So, but in this film, they sort of go over how some scientists, 12 years ago actually, were hypothesizing that gut bacteria causes autism, and the solution to prevent so-called that would be to pump your kid with antibiotics. And of course they say in the documentary then that doing the same with an adult human being would kill them. So I don't know what kind of insane madman would do that to a kid, especially 12 years ago, or even now. But it's you know it's what I mean. This was 2011. It was when Autism Speaks had a lot of prominence. It was also when, as I said, the DSM-5 was 2 years from coming out. But still, and of course the language that they use when discussing these autistic children was not as inclusive as I think it could be. Like, his eyes weren't there, or he's in another world, that kind of stuff. Um, you know, it's a documentary that's interesting to watch, but trying to take it seriously is like, you know, there are more questions than answers. Um, you know, like, oh, and but the real egregious crime to me was, we have all these voices from doctors and all the parents of autistic children, but how about the autistic children themselves, or the autistic people at all? Where are their voices in this documentary about us? Where are we at? And I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome at this time in 2011, so of course 2 years later it was just classified as autism. But then and even in 2011, people were still thinking that Asperger's syndrome was kind of congruent with autism. It's in the spectrum. So, but now I just say, I have autism or autism spectrum disorder. It's easier to explain, Asperger's isn't really scientifically accurate in 2023 because it stopped being scientifically accurate in 2013, So but what were we talking about?
This disabled world.
Right, but what else?
And we were going on about that documentary and
no,
the
before
fucked.
that, but yeah, but
We're going on.
basically, okay, so I'll wrap my thoughts up about that documentary. It's as I said, it's interesting to watch but not to take seriously, because it ends up posing more questions than answers. And of course, that's what I'm supposed to do with this short film, you see, but, mine's more of a philosophical question. And the autism enigma thing, well, that's more, the questions posed by that is more like, you know, how, how does that make sense scientifically? What is the basis? And I think there was an article that I read that's called "The Messy Science Behind the Autism Enigma." I forgot what it's on, but I'll have to link it in the so-called show notes, which is actually the description on this YouTube video. Hang on. But I'll just, put that link up so I can remember to put it in it's on medium.com. And it was actually written by Dr. John Brock in 2019. Oh, yeah, so that's recent. But relatively recent compared to this 12-year-old documentary. But what else were we talking about? Because I was going somewhere with this.
We were talking about how the hard drive fucky thing.
No, that.
And then you were talking about stuff that you lost, and then
we got through.
I know, and then we were talking. And then that segued into talking about Disabled World, because you didn't lose that. You just had to record the lines, and then we started talking about that, and then autism, and then, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, basically what happened was, so the animation is basically stored locally on my computer, which is very fortunate because,
That is very fortunate.
Because... But, I use OpenTunes, and it saves all the files on a local folder on my computer, which is really great because, God knows what I would have done had I had to animate all that stupid shit again. Like, I thought I did it right the first time, and I did. So, but, just meant I had to re-record some lines. No big deal, really. I know we were going somewhere before I started going into this spiel about that documentary I watched. What was it? Well, I asked you your thoughts on the short film.
Yes.
What were they?
Basically just how it's the short film is very good at showing the ways that each character and their different neurodivergence will interact with each other, and despite them having massive differences in how they experience the world.
Okay, I remember what I was doing.
Yeah.
So This is where I was going. So at a local level, and this is what I was talking about with all the news stuff. So at a local level, I'm remembering now. See, it just had to jog my memory. Thank you, Quinny. So at a local level, and I'm based in Abilene, Texas. So at a local level, the Christians have won. The right wing, the Christian right, has won the game. Last November, they enacted a city ordinance, the Sanctuary City for the Unborn ordinance, which, to any sane person reads as, "Bitch, don't have an abortion here, cunt, better sew that shut." So, excuse me. Oh, I don't know what came over me. I thought I must have been a Republican. Anyways. So, but I'm trying to get more involved at this local level, and I've been going to City Hall. I've only been once, really, but still. And I went to the Citizens Advisory Board for People with Disabilities meeting. I went 3 days ago, and, I really think it's important that, we in the disability community, in the disability rights fight, we really need to do something at this local level. And actually, I plan on going to the next city council meeting. I know I didn't go yesterday just because I was kind of recoiling and, kind of bouncing back, I suppose, from the, living nightmare that was losing my external hard drive. But Um, but getting involved in local politics is really good. So, but people that
Thank
are
you.
speaking at the local city council meetings, the regular ones, not just the disabled person meetings, but the regular ones. um, and um, Ryan Goodwin is one of these people, and Scott Beard is another. They're both, I'll tell you who they are in a sec, but they're both pastors. And well, Ryan Goodwin specializes, well, he was the one that was kind of amplifying the whole book burning bannings, intellectually book burnings, but realistically book bannings last year. He was really behind a lot of that. And then Scott Beard was one of the big proponents behind this whole sanctuary city for the unborn ordinance, which, means women can't have abortions here. And so, bitch, you can't have an abortion here, cunt, whore, you know, so that's how I read that. Sanctuary city for the
Yeah.
unborn is PC nice person talk. Just like whatever the fuck Memorial Park means, just call it a fucking cemetery, you fucking sheep. Anyways, I don't know what came over me. I thought I was leftist Joe Rogan. Anyways, so um so but Ryan Goodwin and Scott Beard are pastors, at local churches. And so, me being a member of the Satanic Temple, hail Satan, hail thyself, and all that, my thing is, and, I don't, okay, so I'll tell you this. Using your religion and mixing that with politics is in clear violation of the First Amendment, because the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or to prohibit the free exercise thereof. So, that's why, in that passage, separation of church and state is essentially codified into law. It's constitutional. And Ryan Goodwin actually wanted to be mayor. In May we had our last mayoral election. Thankfully Ryan lost. We ended up getting Weldon Hurt, who's okay. I suppose he wants to work on the roads, which is good. And I'll get to the roads issue in a bit. Oh God, but we also had Dazi Reddy, who was and then so I don't even think I can get into why, but he wanted to add more policemen on the streets, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I was actually rooting for Chad Clark, the write-in candidate. He just seemed like the most down-to-earth fellow. He only got 34 votes, and I think there was a couple thousand that voted in Abilene. Of course, voter apathy is a disease here in Abilene, and it's contagious and it's spread, so there were more non-voters than there were people who did vote in Abilene. I actually didn't vote in the mayoral election. I'm ashamed to admit, but I was, I didn't have too much notice, really. Once again, I don't keep up with the news and stuff, but, that's, I just started to do this local stuff, I mean, I voted in 2022 and I voted in 2020, so I'll vote next year for the next president, I'm really rooting for Rhonda Hitler right now.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, sorry, I thought I was being facetious. Anyways. Yeah. Have you noticed that this is less like an interview and more just me trying to talk to you on the
Yeah, you're
recording?
good though.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I want to do. It's just like a conversation. I don't like being an interviewer if it's on my podcast. If I'm doing the documentary, I'm like, yeah, so how did you do that? And where did the idea come up with, and I try to not bring my own feelings into it, but this is my show and I can do whatever the fuck I want.
And that's so real, honestly.
What would I ask you about? So, do you have any hobbies? So, do you have any
Yeah,
hobbies?
I do music. I'm a big musicer. I'm a big listening to musicer enjoyer. I'm a big music maker enjoyer, even though I don't do it very much.
Oh yeah.
Music is cool, in my opinion.
What'd you think of my new album?
I haven't listened to it fully yet, but I'm excited to.
What'd you think of the jazz album?
That one was good. I really like that one.
What'd you think of CM2?
I have not listened to that one fully yet either, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, the jazz interpretations album. Now that one is a really fun one. That's great. I'll get into that one
It
in a
sounds like
second.
you had a lot of fun making it.
And I did. I'll tell you in a bit. But where was I even? I was talking about, oh yeah, local stuff. So
Yeah,
religion and politics should not mix. Like, and Ryan Goodwin wanted to be mayor. He lost. Um,
good riddance.
Good fucking rid. Well, no, we didn't get rid of him just yet. But he really
Here's
wanted.
hoping.
He really just wanted to, he really wanted to rule with the will of God, I suppose. He really wanted God told him in October 2020, God told him to run, and that, you know, that's just ridiculous. I don't know why, you know, that that's like me saying I'm going to force everyone into atheism or Satanism. I would never want to do anything like that because I think it's cool that we have this diversity of religions, and I think it's cool that we can all intersect and we can all befriend each other if we're nice and we're not shitty people who hate gays and stuff like that. But I think,
The second part is much easier said than done, unfortunately.
sadly, um, there is a sort of Christian left movement which I would love to kind of get in touch with, but
I have noticed it, and I get weird vibes from it. Like, they have good intentions. I just feel like a lot of it is done in like weird ways.
I mean, yeah, I won't get into exactly why though, but it's just, Christianity is a very painful religion for me personally. um,
Yeah,
but yeah, Ryan Goodwin wanted to do that, and Scott Beard is also a pastor, and I think pastors shouldn't be involved in politics whatsoever. That's why I don't
most
involve.
definitely.
That's why I don't involve myself that deeply with the Satanic Temple. I'm just a member. Um, I really, because if I did, I should pull myself out. I want to be consistent, right? So,
Yeah,
but they're so-called tax-exempt churches, and they're interfering with our government. So, what sense does that make? Like, they're just taking advantage of us, really, of all the constituents of Abilene, by standing up there. And I think it's cool that each civilian has, their own, voice, and that they can do that. But once you start interfering with these people and influencing these people, mind you, Scott Beard's brother Lynn Beard did get a place in the city council. Scott didn't though. He lost. um,
Rip Bozo.
Rip Bozo, indeed. So, but it is a sorry state of affairs. But on July 27th, that's gonna be. I'm gonna go back to City Hall, and I'm gonna hopefully talk about some. You know, I think something. If Weldon Hurt wants to fix up the roads, I think that something that needs to be talked about is the bike lanes. It's abysmal
Oh
here.
yeah.
I'll tell you what. Abilene, Texas is the, according to, what was it, carinsurance.org or something? Let me see. Oh, yeah, it was. It's carinsurance.org. Okay, so according to carinsurance.org, funny enough, Abilene, Texas is the second most dangerous city for cyclists, bike riders in the United States of America. We're only just behind Cape Canaveral, Florida. So, Cape Canaveral's having this PR disaster like, oh no, we're the most dangerous city for cyclists. And we're just sitting back like, oh, you poor, poor Floridian bastards.
That's the thing. The first worst gets all the attention, then the second worst
Exactly.
is left to rot until it becomes the worst.
Nobody thinks of the runner up, but I do. And the bike lanes are abysmally narrow. The painted on stripes are fading, and you see this is how you get these cases where the bike rider, the cyclist, will either merge onto the sidewalk or the road itself, and that's dangerous either way. Because if you're on the sidewalk, you're gonna bump into somebody and fall, somebody walking. If you're on the road, you're not you don't have a license plate. Cops can pull you over and arrest you because you don't have a license plate. And stuff like that, and you're not insured, and you don't have the sticker with the date on it, on your bike. Yeah, and I really think they should do something about that, because I'm not sure that the Abilene City Council would like to be second to Cape Canaveral, Florida on anything, let alone the most dangerous city for anything.
Yeah. I think that's something I have noticed a lot there recently, with like especially with like cities and shit, is they will focus their resources mainly on police and then just forget everything else.
Yeah, isn't it
Like
weird? It's like,
my town is not an exception to that. Like we have a severely like overfunded police department, despite like I think it was like 37 incidents total last year, but we still have like that like $5 million in police budget. And that's like the second biggest expense as well.
yeah,
Like, there's no reason we can invest that in like much better places.
exactly. If only Biden had defunded the police instead of defended them. Am I right?
Real.
you know, like, I know I voted for Biden, but that was a vote against Trump. And I know
Yeah. And I fear it will have to be the same once again.
it probably will. And there's no way in hell that I'm going to vote for any Republican candidate ever.
Absolutely.
Just the Republican Party has become this pro authoritarian, kind of somehow bigoted nightmare, whether it be, whoops, whether it be, racism or sexism or xenophobia or ableism or homophobia, transphobia. It's transphobia is the new one. Like it's really
It is very
transphobia.
much.
Transphobia is becoming very, very normalized in that kind of way um, that I suppose a lot of homophobia was in the 80s and racism was in the 60s. They still are. They're very much prevalent and systemic, but transphobia is the new one because it's, the misconception is that being trans is a new phenomenon. You know,
Exactly.
that's the misconception, though. Then again, you think about 1969, the Stonewall riots were basically instigated by a trans woman. So, and then even before that, there were trans people. It's not a new phenomenon, It,
Not at
it's
all.
it's only new, so called,
To people who, it's
because
only new to people who weren't looking or didn't care to look.
yeah, and it's also that way because a lot of those records were erased in Nazi Germany and
Yep.
And a lot of these people, like gay and trans people, were forced to stay in the closet during that era. Um, but now that we've kind of become a bit more, confident about coming out, there's been a lot more vocal hatred towards trans people, with all these things about bathrooms and sports and all that shit I don't want to get into, which is it's all far-fetched bullshit. And it's all really
Literally.
fucking stupid, and I just wish all of them would go away, you know. I
It's been very weird watching like this level of transphobia pop up as a trans person.
it
Like when I first came out, you would get vocalized transphobia, not legislated transphobia. So it's weird watching that shift happen.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you know, pretty soon you're gonna have like, pretty soon you're gonna have four bathrooms instead of two. One for the men, one for the
That
women,
would be horrible.
one for the men, one for the
No.
women, one for the, trans bathroom, and one to hide the drugs in.
So the trans bathroom, my fault.
I just don't like this meme that trans people should be violent, though. That's stupid. I
Yeah,
feel like I feel like
definitely.
you know, like this is how Maya Arson Crime You got banned off Twitter, who I also met on Bliscord, incidentally. She
Shut up,
instigated
Maya.
that whole no-fly list leak, which is awesome. She's a great hacker. She's very skilled. She's smart. And she's funny. Um, but what she said on Twitter about trans people should be legally allowed to murder at one person a day. That was so stupid. She rightfully deserved to be banned because that was a stupid fucking thing to say.
I don't think that's really worth like deserving of a ban. I just think it's kind of like not that funny.
It is.
Like I
I
don't
mean,
think that really violates any TOS. Like
it.
I th-
It. First of all, I think Twitter is a private company, so I mean, it was in their
yeah,
sort of TOS that you can't make death threats, and that was, I'd consider that one. I'd be like and also, let's be real. If I was legally allowed to murder one person a day, I don't think I'd do a good job. So I don't want to do that. I don't
yeah,
have any feelings of murder or violence. You know, peace and love is supposed to be where it's at, right?
yeah,
You know, but I understand the whole frustration aspect of it. Like this is clearly an issue that like the whole violence begets violence thing. Trans violence in turn makes people want to have some sort of violent tendencies. I sometimes think about it in terms of, well, would the world be better off without these people who are just shouting mean things at us? As would the world be better off without? In which case, yes, I think it would be a lot nicer if people weren't just saying you shouldn't be allowed to express yourself in that way because you weren't born that way. Um, it'd be a lot nicer without those people being around.
definitely.
Would it? Would it? Would it not? I mean, but I wouldn't want to take them out, and I don't think they should be taken out in like a killing or assassination or murder kind of way. That's just not, you know, moral.
Yeah,
But, I'm sorry that it happened, and I'm sorry that Maya got banned, but she brought that on herself.
Elon's Twitter. Do you
Elon's
like?
Twitter. Twitter's a garbage
Like
platform,
I think.
anyways. I don't think
Oh,
she should even be
definitely.
fighted that.
Yeah. I am completely off Twitter now for the most part. Like I will only
Nice.
use it to like and retweet promo that like friends send me.
Mm-hmm.
So and honestly, that's been wondrous for mental health. And it's like I don't even use alternatives really because
New Vi
like
5000
they're
single.
just kind of a drain.
New Vi single.
New Vi 5000 single.
Control.
Control featuring by 5000.
I can't wait for that third album. It's gonna be great.
I'm very excited for it. The lore that's coming out with it is also very fun.
Yeah, it's like I think it's interesting that she's incorporating her management company into that. If I'm not
It's
mistaken.
not even, it's not a real management company. It's like, it's a lore management company.
Oh.
Third Wave is like a, it's basically a lore thing.
Hmm.
Third Wave is not real. 1984 GIF.
Still, I think that's interesting though. That's so meta though. I feel like
It is. It's a very cool idea, and I think she's executing it very well.
yeah, I really like Vi 5000's. Like actually it's funny, the first song that wasn't mine that I played on this podcast was Rhino's remix of So Loose,
Hell yeah.
which is, and I like that sort of thing. Vi 5000's doing interesting stuff anyways because she's doing the digicore subset of hyperpop with Vocaloid, which hasn't even been done really that much.
Yeah. I think there are some instances, but I think there's only like three artists I can think of who really do that,
Hmm.
including by 5000, I should say.
Yeah. Well, I feel like she's
But it's
pioneering.
fun.
Definitely, it's yeah,
She's very impressive as well. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I would definitely say so.
pioneering that really for sure. So I feel like it might be a new revolution for, especially like I feel like it could be good for people who are maybe too scared to use their real voice or are too conscious or maybe they want a different sound because all these people are using auto tune or some sort of pitch correction techniques on their voice. But Vi does it on the Vocaloid, so it always comes out perfect and on pitch. So
Yeah.
that's interesting.
I think she's very skillful when it comes to using autotune.
Mm-hmm.
Or not autotune, fuck, Vocaloid. Words are hard.
Same thing.
Same difference.
You young whippersnappers make music with computers? Back in my day, we had to take a tape machine and 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 beat the shit out of it. And that was what you called pop in the 1960s.
I think it's very interesting watching public perception change on like computer music.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I made this on my computer.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't? There has to be some sort of digital step in the mastering process, at least, in order for it to go online.
Yeah,
But, most music is made on computers now because that's just easier. It's how
yeah,
technology has progressed. And, thanks to pop music being made with computers, because EDM and trap music has been made with computers, it's precedented now. So it's, conventional.
yeah. Something I've noticed recently with music is I find myself enjoying like personal made in the basement albums much more compared to like professional studio albums, which I find interesting. That these homemade albums are able to have like infinitely so much more charm than any studio album.
Do you like Daniel Johnston?
I am not familiar.
Well, he was this kind of outsider artist who did a lot of that kind of DIY recording stuff in the 80s with a tape recorder, a 4-track tape recorder. Um, I suppose his most well known album is called Hi, How Are You? And it's a good example of that. Just kind of bashing on a toy keyboard. And that is the music. It's really lo fi. So I suppose that kind of music is coming back. And there was another artist who did that kind of thing called Wesley Willis, Wesley Willis did a lot of these songs, which were kind of ranty, playing over the kind of auto loops on a Casio keyboard that he was using. And he did a song called Rock and Roll McDonald's, which is, you know, about McDonald's. Makes you fat. They serve Big Macs. And it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I am familiar with that song specifically.
So, and I really love that kind of outsider music. Um, Paul McCartney did a few of those kind of at home albums. There, you know, specifically McCartney, McCartney 2, and his latest McCartney 3, which came out in 2020. So those are all made, you know, kind of DIY at his homes. At his homes at the time. And he was recording and you know, his first one specifically kind of legitimized DIY lo-fi music, apparently. And
Huh?
the second one being that it was a kind of synth pop album that came out in 1980, you know, that one kind of revolutionized new wave music. The new one that came out in 2020 was, I think, something he did because of the pandemic. And so, you know, but it's all of his McCartney albums are really great. McCartney was released in 1970. McCartney 2 was released in 1980, and McCartney 3 was released, as I said, in 2020. McCartney 2, actually, if you know the song "Temporary Secretary," that's
Oh yeah.
that's the album that's on. So he recorded all of that by himself at his home, just multi-tracking drums, synths, guitar, vocals. Yeah, I really love DIY music, and that's why I do it. And it's become easier for, you know, thanks to the advancement and advent of the proper technology, and it becoming less and less expensive over time. Young musicians
And
can
it's
just
the
jump right into
easier of piracy.
yeah.
Shout out piracy.
We do not officially condone piracy on this podcast, but
No,
if you want to get involved in that, I won't stop you. But you know,
bro.
but you know, it's like, you know, young musicians are getting into that, and that's so cool, you know, because I'm into that, you know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my kind of piracy story that
All
really
right.
just made me, you know. So this was in Blisscord, and it was when the 1000 gex album came out by no 10,000 gex. That's the new one,
Yeah.
right? 10,000 gex by 100 gex. 1000 gex is the 2019 one. So, but and I was like, you know, why are you listening to the album now? Why aren't you supporting the artist? Because I'm a big advocate for, you know, being nice, being decent, and supporting the artist, you know. And I'm like, why are you just listening to it on this website? And and they're like, well, it came out in Australia. And I'm like, okay. And so, you know, we had this heated debate about it. This was in March, I think. So we had this heated debate about it, and in the end, you know, I was like, I'm fine with totally just waiting until tomorrow. It was the day before that album came out, and they were listening to it on this unofficial website. And that kind of really pissed me off. So pirating music, especially when sorry, pirating music, especially when the artists have nothing to gain from that, isn't exactly ethic. Sorry, isn't exactly ethical in my opinion.
And I completely agree. Like, even just like on a day to day, like whenever I want to think of a song, like I will type it, like even if it's on my playlist and I could just easily search for it within it, I would rather type it in on SoundCloud, type it in on Google, like type it in on Spotify, just like get those, like, just to help out and get those numbers up, even if it's by one, you know? Like,
Yeah,
I like. just getting as much attention to the music I like as possible.
Yeah,
And it's
and
like I don't
supporting
like
the
listening to
artist.
albums early. Like I don't like
Yeah,
spoiling music for myself. Like
exactly,
I want
exactly.
my experience to be the experience that the artist intended.
Yeah, so, and I bought I bought both the Vi's CDs with my money, and I buy art commissions and I donate to charity. So I'm all about supporting the artist because I'm an artist and I can empathize with that. Um, I just don't understand why all my fellow artists, aren't on the same page with me. But if you are, then that's cool.
Like personally, I don't like pirating anything or anything like that made by like or an individual person will feel that effect.
Yeah.
Like pirating shit from like a company, like no one's gonna feel that. Like I probably wasn't gonna buy that thing anyway. Like,
I
you
I
know,
yeah. I don't really pirate a lot of stuff, but because once again it goes back to supporting people. I mean, it's just like
yeah.
even when it is like software like Reaper or Mixcraft or something, I'm perfectly okay with using the demo version. Um, and there are free alternatives like Cantabile and Cakewalk by BandLab and um, you know Amplitube 5 by IK Multimedia, Moto Bass and Moto Drum also by IK Multimedia. They're cool drum and bass VSTs that I use. Um, and otherwise I either received as gifts or bought most of my musical stuff. And so, but the only time I feel like I'd really consider pirating is when I feel like the person that made it is a bad kind of enemy kind of person. Like
Yeah.
like maybe I'd pirate the Five Nights at Freddy's games. But even then
And yeah, that's real.
I'm not a fan of Five
Like
Nights at Freddy's.
I've only pirated it in the sense where I downloaded a ROM to put it on my 3DS. Um,
I mean
and that's about it.
that's real though because that's different because the eShop closed. And I was actually and this will segue really great because I was watching a Paper Dawn video about just mod your 3DS and download the ROMs of these, you know, now they're going to be like inaccessible eShop only apps on the 3DS. So just software mod your 3DS and download the ROMs. And you know, I would also be foolish to be against emulation because, I mean, it's obvious that emulation is kind of the future because, planned obsolescence is just so systemically ingrained in the way video game consoles and video games are made and marketed that emulating a ROM for something like um, that one elevator game on the NES. No one remembers anything like that, or Color a Dinosaur, or Lester the Unlikely on the SNES, or, you know, it's, unless you're gonna go all out and buy all the old systems and all those old games, Nintendo's not gonna put any of that on the eShops or the classic versions of those consoles. Too much licensing stuff, and too much paperwork to sift through, and it's not really that sustainable the way Nintendo does things. Nintendo is so bad at just dealing with their IPs, and
Yeah, definitely.
but we all buy their shit anyways because they're Nintendo. They invented Mario, Zelda, Kirby, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, Pokemon. So they invented that stuff, and we buy their shit anyways. And look, I love Nintendo games, Nintendo games are pretty much my only favorite games. In fact, aside from VR chat, I play a lot of Animal Crossing New Leaf. So it would be a hypocrite of me to say don't support Nintendo. I never say that actually. I think Nintendo makes a lot of great games, but as a company, I don't think they're doing the best as they could be.
Yeah, I would definitely not say so. Like, because especially a lot of like older games, like especially now with the eShop closing, the only way that you can get these games are via like piracy, via ways where you can't give the company money even if you wanted to. Like, because if you are going to get a game, you're not going to get it through Nintendo. You're going to get it off eBay or some other reseller. Like,
Yeah,
they are purposely making games harder to get their like people to get their hands on, and
yeah.
it's a very
This
odd thing.
this intentional scarcity also extends as far as the record industry too. You have all these companies making 50 different color vinyl variants of one album, and it's just so stupid. You have the Walmart variant, the Target variant, the indie shops variant, you have the Amazon exclusive with a different bonus track, you got the Best Buy bundle with 2 bonus tracks. Of course, you have to get the combo DVD and CD pack with all the bonus tracks and a DVD with all the music videos and a documentary on it. So you have all these versions of the same album, and it's so weird. Like, why not just have one version of the album that is that version, you know?
Yeah,
Like, I think it's cool to collect them all. I think it's cool to be like, oh hey, I got all the variants, but like it's just a cheap way of, you know, selling more plastic, making more money just so the listener can buy the same album 6 or 7 different times. Um, you're getting the same 12 tracks, 13 if you get the Amazon bundle, which comes with a t-shirt or a tote bag. And if it's a classic album from the 60s, they're good, they're remastering them now, so you get to have a tote bag with that one, and that's going to come in 80 different bundles because that's, Revolver now. But speaking of albums, and this is what I was going to talk about earlier, also talking about Paper Dawn, so jazz interpretations of Platinum Dreams, and this also goes into the DIY music thing. Oh, it was such a great album for me to make. It was so fun. I just felt really, I feel good about it. And so what happened was, um, all the music on that album was recorded on the same day, June 22nd, 2023. And only Allie's voice clip that she does as Periwinkle at the very beginning was recorded 6 days later on June 28th. Then I had to put it out immediately on June 29th. I didn't want to lose that. And see, I knew I was going to lose that hard drive soon. But, you see, I'm trying to be a fortune teller. You're supposed to laugh. um, but, so, but it's based on a comic that my friend Don does called Platinum Dreams, which, I don't know if you've read all the way through, Quinny, but I really love
yeah, I've
this.
not read it all the way through yet.
Yeah, well, it's just so good. Um, it's it's and Dawn is the creator, and they're my friend, and they let me do this album. They're cool with it. They're all, it's just they want everyone who's reading the comic to have their own interpretation of what it's about and the themes that are coming off of it. Like, some of it is blatantly obvious, like one of the characters is trans, and you know that sort of stuff. Part of it is like actually about an artistic struggle and that, but that's objective. But then you have the subjective version of like, what did you get out of this comic, which also goes back into my short film, because what are you going to get out of Disabled World when I finish it in 2098? you know because
Yeah.
you know it and it's this is a comic, Platinum Dreams, is a comic that Dawn is really putting a lot of love and passion and effort and a lot of time into. And this, it's, it really, like, every panel and every page and every strip just really, it's amazing. Parts of it are funny, parts of it are really, like, genuinely emotionally moving, and really, um I love every bit of it. So I thought, well, what could I do to sort of deal with how much this comic moved me? Well, I'm going to make an album out of it. And I did. Um, so, um, and I love the Peanut specials as much as anyone else, and Vince Guaraldi did all the music on those. And in 1964, he actually did an album called Jazz Impressions of A Boy Named Charlie Brown, which was the soundtrack to a documentary that hadn't aired ever. It was going to air, but it didn't end up airing. It just was never finished. So, Vince Guaraldi, being a jazz musician, I thought, oh, I'm going to do a jazz album. And I've been getting into jazz, like really into Herbie Hancock and John Coltrane, Miles Davis. Like, seriously now, I'm getting into the good stuff. Bill Evans, Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, Max Roach, Art Blakey. Do you know any of these names?
Not really, no.
If you want to hear some really, really, really good jazz music, you gotta get. Oh, and Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie. And I mean, I'm naming all these great, legendary names. It's just so weird that a lot of young people don't know any of those names. But, I, you know, I just like a lot of old music, and jazz has always been involved in that. I also love vocal jazz like Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra's a great one. Um, you know, really, really great jazz vocalists. So I thought, I'm gonna do all of my influences, and I'm gonna do a jazz album of songs inspired by Platinum Dreams. And originally it was, I was going to name it in the same kind of naming convention style as the Vince Guaraldi album, Jazz Impressions of a Boy Named Charlie Brown. I was going to name it a Jazz Impressions of Platinum Dreams. And then, Dawn and I had this kind of conversation the night before I recorded the music. And, they were like, everyone has their own interpretation of the album, and so I want that album to be a fan album that's based on my work, but is more based on an interpretation of my work. This is what Dawn said. And I was like, I want it to be a kind of official soundtrack, or semi-official, because, you're endorsing it. And so we met in the middle, and so, it's sort of, I like to think, I want to think it's official, and I want to think, yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. Dawn's into it, but it is based on a fan's interpretation of the comic, and really, I do urge you to finish reading the comic. And for those of you listening, I do urge you to read the comic in its entirety. Get the context for the album, and. But so that's why I named it to its final name, Jazz Interpretations of Platinum Dreams, because it is my interpretation, and it's in the jazz musical stylings. So, Jazz Interpretations, it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like I might do another one, actually. I really think, that jazz music is one of the purest forms of musical expression. And I've been really into pure forms of musical expression. And so I want to get into that, and I want to do more of it. But Dawn said to me, yeah, if ever I want incidental music for the comic, I'll let you know. So, it's just, actually, I think it would be cool if there was like some sort of, you know, and I haven't approached Dawn with this idea yet because I'm working on so much, or I was, anyways. Um,
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I'm a bit free. I'm gonna approach them with this idea that you know I think there should be some sort of special, this Platinum Dreams special that we could work on and we could pitch to a company. Now, I say that because I don't want to do all the animation myself. I'm already so worked up on Disabled World um, that um, so so I might take that idea to Dawn and see what they think of it.
Yeah, it sounds like that could be cool.
Yeah, like you know about the Charlie Brown specials, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's also funny because that's actually how I first got into Paper Dawn because they also do a lot of YouTube videos. So the first one that I saw was they did this retrospective of all the Peanuts video games, and it just so happened that I had one of them as a kid. Where's the Blanket Charlie Brown? Was this educational PC game that came out in 2002 that I remember very much. I remember playing as a kid, and I had a lot of fun with it. And so I picked it up recently, and yeah, it's kind of little kiddish, but it's still fun. I
Yeah.
I definitely let my hypothetical child play it. Um, but um, then they said that the best Peanuts game was actually this one called Snoopy versus the Red Baron, which was also available for PS2. Well, I have a PS2. My GameCube doesn't work actually. I need to fix or replace the laser in it that reads the discs because I think that's the problem. So, I'll have to take that in to get repairs. But um, so um, PS2. So I bought a copy of the game, and it is very fun. It's so satisfying to like shoot down the enemy ships and everything. So cool. What a fun game. Snoopy versus the Red Baron on PlayStation 2.
Shadow Snoopy versus the Red Baron on PlayStation 2, for real.
Yeah. Well, we went a bit over an hour, but I think that's good though cuz we're setting a precedent now, and you know, we're you know, we're starting to do these 2 episodes per guest kind of thing, which is cool. I think that's something I want. Really, the reason why I haven't done an episode since January was because I was just having trouble finding a guest that would be willing to go on. I want this
That's
because I wanted this podcast to be more like a sane version of the Joe Rogan experience. I like the concept of his podcast. I like that, he's bringing on all these different people, um, no matter what field they engage themselves in. But, he's a shitty person, and his
yeah.
politics are shitty, and I think I hold more resentment towards Joe Rogan after 2022 just because of Daniel Ek and the way he handled that whole Spotify thing. Neil Young and Joni Mitchell pulled their music off Spotify because um, Joe Rogan had said all this anti-vax stuff on his podcast the previous year, and this was January 2022. So I'm still a bit salty about it a year and a half later. But you know, they were both polio survivors, Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. So, being anti-vax, that
Yeah, good on them for
exactly,
making that statement, though.
exactly. So they took all their they took all their music off Spotify. I mean, okay, it just means I'll have to listen to Harvest or Blue or, um, you know, um, you know that it's it's just so silly. Like like Spotify first and foremost is supposed to be this music platform, but Daniel Ek would rather side with this podcaster who's who's like you know you know like
Yeah.
you know you don't have to prove fealty to Joe Rogan if you want to be like pro freedom of speech. You don't have to you don't have to yield to that kind of toxic shit, really, because it's just it just causes more pain and misery. like there have historically been more fans of Neil Young and Joni Mitchell than there have been of Joe Rogan, and me being a fan of both of them, like it's just so stupid. And I think Daniel Ek's a horrible CEO. I think he looks like a thumb, and I think he sleeps at night.
I've noticed, like, like alongside a lot more like mainstream transphobia and stuff like that, I've sort of noticed like a rise of like Gamergate too. Like if I like watching some videos on incognito mode because I don't like I'm like, yeah, this is interesting. I don't want it in my recommended though.
Yeah,
Like, so I'll watch a YouTube video on like incognito mode, and then I'll press the main screen after that, and it's just filled with like Joe Rogan experience clips, like, and other like Ben Shapiro sometimes, and it's just like, how is this happening, and why is this like on the main page of like what is essentially a fresh YouTube account?
I know. It's just like, well, it's because y- YouTube is kind of this. I mean, let's face it, Republicans have the money, conservatives have the money,
Yeah,
so they have this money to market their propaganda in a way that the left just really can't, like, and it's also just like, but I didn't know that Gamergate was seeing a resurgence. I thought that ended 9 years ago. um but it's weird because, like, wasn't Anita Sarkeesian talking about all these men being kind of like, just like very sexist and everything, and here are these incelish men proving her point exactly by just vitriolically attacking her and doing all this horrible shit, ruining her life forever, just because they didn't like what she said, which was a fact, an observable fact about them, you know?
yeah. I think it's interesting and both scary and interesting watching history go on sort of a loop in that front.
Yeah, I mean, history is going to repeat itself anyway, because just look at 9/11. The World Trade Center was actually bombed once before in 1993. 2001 wasn't the only time, but
Yeah,
you know, history is no stranger to repeating itself. Like, and I think this is sort of Mother Nature and Father Time being abusive cosmic parents in a way. Because why else would they do that other than to just fuck with us, the children of
yeah.
nature, really. But that's you know it's just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it anymore. I'm just kind of tired of seeing these you know things happening.
Honestly, yeah.
But I think we're gonna have to call it here, because we're approaching that one half hours mark. So thank you, Quinny, for having this
Thank
conversation
you
with
for
you.
having me. This was a lot of fun.
Hmm. And we might continue the conversation outside of this recording. But, sorry, listener. But, bye. Say goodbye.
Bye, listener.